Hi there, BookTube, it's Ros. Now, when I read a relatively newly published book, novel, I will try if I can to do a quick review that says if I liked it and might give you some idea of whether it's one that you might want to read. And this time it's Days of Light by Megan Hunter, which was published in the UK in April of this year, and we're now in June. I have to say, Days of Light is a book that could almost have been written with me in mind, as if Megan Hunter had sat down and said to herself, how do I write a book that Ros would really just love? What would I put in it? And did that. Would you like it too? Well, let's explore why I liked it so much, and you can see. Because there's kind of three layers to this, I think. And layer number one is the quality of the writing. Now, when I say the quality of the writing, I don't just mean, I think it's good writing. I mean the actual feel of the writing, how she wrote the book, the words, the kind of sentences, the style, all of that. That was very attuned to what I like. So let me explain more. Now, if you say that a book called Days of Life has luminous prose, that sounds a bit trite, doesn't it? But that is, absolutely the most appropriate description for many of the sentences, paragraphs, sections. The way this book is written. I mean, light is a recurring theme, but also just like the way she uses words. Yeah. We get characters and place and emotion kind of through glimpses and revelations and bursts, sort of interspersed with sort of the quotidian elements of life in an unfussy and yet rather beautiful way. We follow one woman's life from age 19 to age 90, and in that life we get family relationships, artistic ambitions, romantic love, sexual attraction, or kind of loss and bereavement, and what that impact that can have. There's a sort of spiritual thread to it, about meaning and purpose of life and faith, without being heavy-handed about that. All of those things, but we don't get the whole of her life. What we get is 6 days, six individual, almost like 24-hour periods are described, and they're all at important moments in this woman's life. Ivy is her name, but the way they're described, in a way, is lyrical and yet quite cool. The emotional temperature is not melodramatic, despite there being quite dramatic events, and as I say, a lot packed in. Put that all together, and that absolutely sort of hits the spot for me in terms of what I want to read. Layer number two. Okay, and this definitely made the book more enjoyable for me, and will for you if you share this. Okay, this is a book that's going to be particularly enjoyable if you are intrigued by Virginia Woolf and her sister Vanessa Bell, and Vanessa's partner Duncan Grant. Bell and Grant were both artists. The rest of the Bloomsbury group, their ideas, their art, their literary sort of contribution, and their strange tangled lives and relationships. If that is a subject of curiosity for you, this book has a sort of second layer of enjoyment. It's loosely based, or inspired by, the life of Angelica Garnett, who was the daughter of Vanessa Bell. But it's not a retelling of her life by any means. There are characters in the book that you can think, that's kind of the Virginia Woolf character, that's kind of the Vanessa Bell character, that's Leonard Woolf, that's it. So if you know them, then that adds a little added colour. But you don't need to to enjoy the book. It's more like that's a next layer, and it's not, as I say, it's not a literal retelling of Angelica Garnett's life. It's more, it's something fresh and different, and a story in its own right. But it did add a little something for me. And beyond that, I would say it was obvious to me as a reader that Hunter has read a lot of Woolf, loves Virginia Woolf's writing, and she's not copying her style. I mean, that would be a very rash thing to do, wouldn't it? To write, to attempt that. But you can see kind of influences and references, I suppose. Mrs. Dalloway, say, Woolf's book, Mrs. Dalloway. In Mrs. Dalloway, we get one day in the life of Clarissa Dalloway, and we follow her thoughts and her actions, and that's used, I suppose, to say something more than just what this posh woman did that day when she was getting ready for a party. It's got wider sort of thoughts, ideas, sort of messages, but it's conveyed through that one character and one day. So you can see, we're hit, but this time we get 6 days. But then that is in a sense reminiscent of The Waves, because in Woolf's The Waves, she revisits the same set of characters on one day, sort of decades apart. So you can see those influences, and that gave an extra layer of enjoyment to me. Now, layer 3 is the most personal, and this is there's a limited set of readers out there that this is going to apply to, but it gave it as something extra for me, and that is that the book is set in Sussex mostly, and a little bit in London. And, those are two places that I know well, that are important to me. And I could very much sort of physically imagine myself in the places that she's describing in the book. In particular, there's a family home in the story, and sort of all the different days that we see kind of revolve back somehow to this home, and it is really closely based on Charleston, where Belle and Grant and so on lived, where Angelica Garnett grew up. The real house at Charleston, in Firle, in Sussex. There's just a few miles from where I live, and I could picture the rooms, picture the garden, picture the surrounding landscape, the woods, the hills. So, for me, that was the icing on the cake. But do you need that to enjoy this book? No, definitely not. I think just having a little bit of interest in the lives of, Woolf and Belle and so on might give you an added enjoyment. But it is essentially a really beautifully written and lovely and cleverly structured and elegantly put together novel. So a recommendation from me.